about the locations, features, and functions. Then sclerenchyma also same thing. We learned something special that they are dead, right? They have lignin, so they are dead. So we learned about again the locations, features, and functions. Then under complex permanent tissues, we learned about xylem and phloem. Under xylem, we said that there are 4 types of cells: xylem vessel element, tracheids, xylem parenchyma, and xylem fibers. So out of these, xylem vessel element water transport karna, tracheids with water transport karna, fibers support එක දෙනවා parenchyma food storage. And xylem vessel element, tracheids, and fibers, they're all dead. Only parenchyma are living in the xylem tissue. Then we talked about the functions. Then in the phloem tissue, we said again there are 4 types as sieve tube element, companion cells, phloem fibers, and phloem parenchyma. Then sieve tube element වලින් කරන්නේ, sieve tube element doesn't have a nucleus, no? So එයා මොකද්ද දැන් ඔයගොල්ලන්ගේ question එකක් ඇහුවොත් මේ exam එකේ what is a type of a plant cell without a nucleus කියලා you write sieve tube element. Okay? So it doesn't have a nucleus. So it transports food. Companion cells with a nucleus තියෙනවා. එයා කරන්නේ sieve tube element. Now, sieve tube element doesn't have a nucleus, but nucleus is the one that controls all the activities of the cell. Since sieve tube elements do not have that, companion cells වලින් තමයි එක කරන්නේ. Okay? Then parenchyma තියෙනවා. ඒ තුන් දෙනාම living, and phloem fibers are the only ones who are dead in phloem. Then animal tissues වල අපි කිව්වා there are multiple types, but we are mainly learning 4 types. These are the 4 main types of tissues. There's epithelial tissue, connective tissue, muscle tissue, and nervous tissue. Then epithelial ගැන අපි කතා කරා. Epithelial වල feature එකක් තමයි they are placed on a basement membrane, and these cells are tightly packed. There are different shapes and different number of layers. මෙන්න මේක මම add කරේ not for y'all to study, but for y'all to get an idea only. There is a nerve supply, but no blood supply. This is a very important feature. Example අහනවා මේක. Right? Nerve supply එකක් නැහැ, blood supply එකක් තියෙනවා for epithelial tissues. That's very important. Then locations kata kara, functions kata kara, and that is where we stop. Today we're actually going to end the lesson. Connective tissue. Connective කියන වචනයෙන්ම, right? That word itself explains what connective tissues do. Connective means lamai connections. Hamodi may clear නැත්te සමහරට මේ connection issue එකක් හින්දා වෙන්නේ, but as long as you can hear me, that would be okay. මේ video එක සමහරට post වෙන්නේ connection issue එක ආවම, but if I get a notification that my connection is unstable, මම පොඩ්ඩකට video off කරන්න. Okay. So connective tissues connects the organs and systems and tissues and all that in the body. For an example, your brain and your heart, they are connected. They are connected because there is a certain connection. Like what? Mainly, අපේ body එකේ connections establish කරන්නේ by a tissue called blood tissue. Blood tissue means very simply it's the blood. Blood in your body, අපි සාමාන්‍යයෙන් ඒකට consider කරනවා blood tissue එකක් කියලා. Okay? So, blood is something that connects all the organs in your body. Your brain, heart, lungs, liver, stomach, digestive system, legs, hands, eyes, ears, all of these organs are connected to each other by blood. Because there is a blood supply to everywhere. Epithelial tissues වලට ඇරෙන්න අනිත් හැමතැනම වගේ blood supply එකක් තියෙනවා. The blood වලින් කරන්නේ හැමතැනම connections හදනවා. Therefore, blood tissue is an example for a connective tissue. ඔයගන්න පුළුවන් මාත් එක highlight කරගන්න. Whatever I highlight. මම ගොඩක් මේ දැන් classes වල ළමයින්ට කියනවා මේ ටික highlight කරන්න මේ ටික highlight කරන්න කියලා, because you don't seem to know how to study and which points to study. So ගොඩක් වෙලාවට ඒකින්ද ඔයගොල්ලෝ අනවශ්‍ය දේවල් පාඩම් කළා you waste time. ගොඩක් වෙලාවට class එකේ මම ඔයගලන්ට එකම point එකක් දෙතුන් සැරයක් කියනවා නම් ඒක මම සමහරට හිතලා කියන්න නැති වෙන්න පුළුවන්. ඒ වෙලේ උගන්වද්දි මම එකම point එක දෙතුන් සැරයක් කියලා පොඩක් emphasize කරනවා නම් ගොඩක් වෙලාවට මේ papers වල අහපුවා. ඒකේ මතකේ එනකොට ඒකත් එක්ක I sort of emphasize. සමහරවිට මට ඒක මගේ හිතලා නෙවෙයි කරන්නේ. එතකොට මම මේක exam වල අහුවා කියලා ඔයගලන්ට ඒ වෙලේට කියවෙන්නේ නැහැ. But ඒ වගේ points ඔයගලන් චුට්ටක් වැඩිපුර focus කරන්න. Okay, now for an example, the sieve tube element එක කියද්දී නම් මම කිව්ව එක exam එකට අහනවා කියලා, because that's because I consciously did that. But sometimes with like the experience, I can papers බලලා I can past papers වල තියෙනවා මතකෙට සමහරවිට මම සමහර points emphasize කරනවා. Okay, that's because they occur a lot in past papers. නැත්තම් ඔය passport study කරාම if you study well, like if you study good enough, you can actually get the paper, get the answers. It's not that difficult. ඔගලන්ට වැඩේ තියෙන්නේ now what I have noticed is that since 2019 going forward in all the batches, what I've noticed is that more and more you don't seem to know how to study. What to study. Okay. So එක හින්දා important දේවල් වලට main focus එක දෙන්න. අනිත් එක මම කලින් weeks වලත් කිව්ව ගන්නට don't try to memorize like a parrot. Because ඔයා කටපාඩම් කරලා පාඩම් කරන ඒවා exam එකේ අහනවා අඩුයි. MCQ සමහරට ඔයගලන්ට shape කරගන්න පුළුවන් වෙයි, but even then කටපාඩම් කරලා there's only so much that you can do. Okay, it's limited. Because in the exam they are going to combine a few different lessons and they are going to test. Okay, I'm sorry, the kids, my neighbors' kids, they are screaming. I hope you can't hear it. Anyways, connective tissues, they provide a connection between tissues and organs. They provide support too. Ekak tamai, as I said previously, blood tissue. The other one lama is bone tissue. Bone tissue can be body ke bones. You know, you have seen skeletons, no? You have seen skeletons. Those skeletons are how our body actually is if it was not for all the organs and muscles. Organs and muscles ayin karahama ape body ekak te skeleton එක වගේ තමයි. So skeleton එකේ bones body එකේ හැම තැනටම spread වෙලා තියෙනවා. So it also creates a connection. So bone tissue also another example, but we are not going to be learning about bone tissue in our syllabus. We are only going to be learning about blood tissue. Okay. Features. Composed of different types of cells and fibers. May avilla connective tissues වලට commonly තියෙන features. All connective tissues have these features. මොනවාද? Composed of different types of cells and fibers. එක එක ජාතිය cells, ඊට පස්සේ fibers එහෙමම තියෙනවා. It's like a collection. Okay. Cells and fibers are embedded in a large matrix. What does that mean? ඒ කියන්නේ ළමයි matrix එකක් කියන්නේ නිකන් අර cytoplasm එක වගේ medium එකක්. Like a medium. There are cells උයි, fibers උයි, තව cells and then more fibers, cells, fibers. All of these cells and fibers are embedded in this medium. A medium එකට තමයි අපි matrix එකක් කියලා කියන්නේ. Okay? Most connective tissues have a nerve and blood supply. This is important because epithelial tissues, if you remember, make MCQ එකට හොඳ point එකක්. Epithelial tissues වල nerve supply එකක් තියෙනවා but blood supply එකක් නැහැ. But if you come to connective tissues, there is a nerve supply and there is also a blood supply. Okay? So that's a good point. So the connective tissues වලට commonly තියෙන features තමයි මේ. They have different types of cells and fibers. These different types of cells and fibers are embedded in a matrix, and also they have a nerve supply and a blood supply. Then, main syllabus we are going to focus on the blood tissue. Right? We are going to focus on the blood tissue. Blood tissue is a connective tissue, that is true, but it is a special connective tissue. Blood tissue can be connective tissue, have a special connective tissue. That is because matrix is not secreted by the blood cells. ඒ කියන්නේ ළමයි සාමාන්‍ය normal connective tissues වල මම ඔයගලන්ට කිව්වනේ there's a matrix කියලා, right? In normal connective tissues there's a matrix and cells and fibers, they are all embedded in this matrix. Matrix එක embed වෙලා ඉන්නේ. Actually this matrix is produced by the cells themselves. In a connective tissue, a matrix එක හදන්නේ cells වලින්ම තමයි. Cells වලින්ම matrix එක හදලා ඒ matrix එක embed වෙලා ඉන්නවා. Normally connective tissues. But blood tissue is special. Normally connective tissues එමෙ හිටියට blood වල එහෙම නැහැ. Right? Blood වල the matrix is not secreted by the blood cells. In normal connective tissues, the matrix or the medium is secreted by the cells in normal connective tissues. But blood is a special connective tissue where that matrix is not secreted by the blood cells. helps in maintaining a connection between organs and tissues. That's obvious, right? Because blood is a connective tissue. So obviously it would help to maintain a connection. Let's look at the features. Composed of a fluid matrix. This is called plasma. සාමාන්‍ය ළමයි blood ගත්තොත් එහෙම blood වල cells ඔක්කොම ඉන්නේ නිකන් වතුර වගේ liquid එකක. Right? All the cells are like kind of embedded in a medium that is like a fluid. That is water වගේ හැබැයි එච්චර water වගේ නෑ but kind of watery. Right? It's a liquid matrix, a fluid matrix. That matrix we call it plasma. Plasma කියලා කියන්නේ අපි grade 11 වල 6th lesson එකේ. Lesson number 6 we are going to be learning more details. Matrix එකේ මොනවද තියෙන්නේ බලමු. There are 3 types of cells. There are red blood cells which are also called erythrocytes. There are white blood cells which are also called leukocytes, and there are platelets. Platelets are not actually cells. Now red blood cells and white blood cells are actually cells. But platelets, they are not cells. They are just cellular fragments. ඒකෙන් ළමයි cells වල කැඩිච්ච කෑලි වගේ. Just fragments. So අපි blood ගත්තාම there is a matrix, a fluid matrix. It's called the plasma. Unlike normal connective tissues, here that matrix is not secreted by the cells. Okay. What are these cells? Matrix එකේ මොනවාද මේ තියෙන cells? There are 3 types. There are red blood cells, which we call erythrocytes. There are white blood cells, which we call leukocytes. And there are also platelets. අපි නිකන් cells කියලා කිව්වට ඇත්තටම platelets කියන්නේ cells නෙවෙයි. They are cellular fragments. Fragments of cells. Okay. Fibers are not all. Now, බලන්න මෙතන connective tissues. කියන්නේ overall commonly connective tissues වල feature එකක් තමයි composed of different types of cells and fibers. Fibers උත් තියෙනවා normal connective tissues වල. මෙයාගේ නැද්ද? blood වල නැද්ද? blood වල තියෙනවා. හැබැයි හැම වෙලේම ඒගොල්ලන් appear වෙන්නේ නැහැ. Fibers are not always found. They appear only during blood clotting. Blood clotting කියන්නේ හිතනවා වගේ තුවාලයක් වුණා කියලා. Let's say you got a bruise, so blood will flow out of the bruise නේ. ටිකක් වෙලා ගියාම blood flow වෙන එක නවතිනවනේ. I mean, if it's like a huge wound, of course, blood will continuously flow. But let's say a small scratch or something, after some time, the blood flow will stop. That is because එතන net එකක් වගේ හැදෙනවා fibers වලින්. උතර blood තවත් එළියට යන්නේ නැහැ. That is called blood clotting. ඒ net එක හදන්නේ මේ fibers. So normal connective tissues වල there are cells and fibers. In blood also, because it is a connective tissue, there are cells and fibers. හැබැයි fibers හැම වෙලේම නැහැ. Blood clotting වෙන වෙලාවට විතරක් you can find fibers. Okay, so that is blood. Let's see what are the functions of blood. Transportation of materials, of course. Blood does a lot of transport. මම දැන් breathe කරාම oxygen, ඒ oxygen ටික මගේ cells වලට transport කරන්නේ blood වලින්. Okay? And then nutrients. සිතන්න මම දැන් කාලා digest වෙනවා. Nutrients digest වෙනවානේ. ඒ nutrients ටික අදාළ තැන් වලට අරන් යන්න එපා. That transportation also is done by blood. Excretory materials like urine, ඒ වගේ දේවල් transport කරනවා blood වලින්. Hormones. Let's say අපි grade 10 වලනේ කරේ reproduction. So reproduction වල if you remember FSH and LH. මතකයිද? What is FSH? What is the hormone FSH?
Follicle stimulating hormone.
Follicle stimulating hormone. Follicle stimulating hormone and LH luteinizing hormone. Right? They were secreted by what gland? Do you all remember? FSH and LH were secreted by what? මතක නැහැ? කොහෙන්ද secreted in FSH LH? Are you saying that there are 13 in the class? Are you saying all the 13 have forgotten or have not studied? You can just unmute and tell me.
The pituitary gland.
Yes, it is a pituitary gland. FSH and LH are secreted by the pituitary gland. Good. So that is found in your brain. එක පස්සේ ඔයගොල්ලෝ ඉගෙන ගන්නවා, but brain එකේ එක තැනක තමයි pituitary gland එක තියෙන්නේ. Pituitary gland එකෙන් FSH, LH secrete කරාම those hormones have a certain task now. FSH will go and do some function. LH will go and do another function, right? They have certain tasks. එතකොට where do they act on? They act on the ovary. FSH and LH hormones are secreted by the pituitary gland, but they go and act on the ovary. Follicle stimulating hormone එකෙන් කරන්නේ follicle එක හදන එක. Right? Podi primary follicle ඉඳන් graphene follicle එක වෙනකන් එක improve කරන එක. Then after the ovulation, the graphene follicle becomes corpus luteum and corpus albicans. That is done by luteinizing hormone, right? එතකොට brain එක ළඟ pituitary gland එකෙන් secrete කරපු hormones දෙන්න කොහොමද ovary එක ළඟට වෙනකන් ගියේ? Because of through what? Blood, right? Blood is what transported those hormones to the ovary. ඒ වගේ ළම ඒක විතරක් නෙවෙයි. Let's say you are under a lot of stress. මේක සමහරට experience උත් ඇති. When you're under a lot of stress, you sometimes get stomach cramps. Stomach cramps එනවා, ඇඟපත රිදෙන්න ගන්නවා. So આ stress එකේ ඉන්නකොට ඔයාගේ එක hormone එකක් secrete වෙනවා. එක hormones there are like a certain what do you call it, a certain number of hormones. There are a few hormones that are associated with stress. ඒ hormones ගිහලා body එකේ එක එක තැන් වලට වැඩ කරලා you can feel physical things as well, like stomach cramps and all that. එතකොට ඒ ඔක්කොම transport වෙන්නේ blood වලින්. Blood is responsible for the transportation. Then you know ovary එකෙන් secrete වෙනවා estrogen and progesterone. Those hormones act on the uterus. එතකොට ඒගොල්ලන් uterus වලට transport වෙන්නේ blood වලින්. Okay? So blood is responsible for transportation of most of the materials. Protection. Lama ape body ke there are now, we said that there are 3 types of cells now. There are 3 types of cells now. There are white blood cells. Sorry, there are red blood cells. There are white blood cells and there are platelets. Ekeme white blood cells කියන කට්ටිය හරිම important. මොකද මම මේ වගේ ස්ටෝරි එකක් ගොල්ලන්ට කලිනුත් කියලා ඇති when I was trying to explain you what antibodies are. I have told you, like when an enemy invades your kingdom or some kingdom, right? එතකොට මොකද කරන්නේ? ඔයාගේ kingdom එකේ soldiers ලා හදනවා. හදලා enemies එක්ක fight කරනවා. ඒ වගේ if your body is the kingdom, okay, if your body is the kingdom, the ruling power තියෙන්නේ white blood cells වල. the white blood cells තමයි ගොඩක් වෙලාවට protection දේවල් කරන්නේ. Let's say enemy කෙනෙක් එනවා කියලා, like a virus or a bacteria or sometimes even a fungus, right? White blood cells වලින් මොකද කරන්නේ? Antibodies හදනවා. Antibodies are soldiers. Antibodies ගිහිල්ලා ඒ enemies එක්ක fight කරනවා. Okay? So white blood cells are very important because white blood cells are what gives protection. White blood cells destroy foreign bodies by phagocytosis. Phagocytosis කියන method එක අපි ඉස්සරහට තවත් කතා කරනවා. But for now, let me tell you, it's something simply something like, let's say bacteria කෙනෙක් වගේ body එකට ආව කියලා white blood cell එක ගිහිල්ලා යව blast කරනවා. යව destroy කරනවා. That is phagocytosis. නැත්තම් it will produce antibodies. An army එකක් හදනවා. Soldiers ලා හදනවා. Right? Using both these methods, white blood cells provide protection to our body. Very important. Maintenance of homeostasis. Again, this is something that you will learn in the 6th lesson, because may lesson එක ගොඩක් 6th lesson එකට related, right? Because in lesson number 6 we are going to be learning about most of the systems in our body, like digestion, respiration, blood circulation, excretion. ඒ ඔක්කොම අපි කතා කරනවා ගොඩක්. Simply කිව්වොත් homeostasis කියන්නේ අපේ body එකේ conditions. Okay? So our body always tries to maintain the condition stable. Right? So let's say රස්නේ ඔයාගේ body එකේ රස්නේ වැඩි වෙනවා කියලා. ඔයාගේ body එක ටක් ගාලා ආයෙමත් heat එක අඩු කරන්න හදනවා. Let's say ඔයාගේ body එකේ heat එක අඩු වෙනවා කියලා. ඔයාගේ body එක ටක් ගාලා වැඩ කළා heat එක වැඩි කරන්න හදනවා. Your body does not like change. Your body doesn't like to change anything. Okay, let's say body temperature එක වෙන්න පුළුවන්, ඊට පස්සේ blood glucose, let's say ඔයාගේ body එකේ glucose level එක වැඩි නම් ඔයාගේ body එක ටක් ගාලා එක අඩු කරනවා. ඔයාගේ body එකේ glucose level එක අඩු වෙනවා. I'm sorry. Sorry. So if the blood glucose level in your body is less, your body will somehow try to make it more. හැම වෙලේම ඔයාගේ body එක හදන්නේ හැමදාම constant තියාගන්න. Your body does not like change at all. ඒක තමයි homeostasis කියලා කියන්නේ. Homeostasis is your body trying to maintain the conditions stable. Okay? Conditions stable maintain කරන එක තමයි homeostasis කියලා කියන්නේ. So blood actually helps for homeostasis as well. ඒක help කරන විදිය අපි lesson number 6 එකේ කතා කරමු, but just for the moment remember that blood plays a role in homeostasis. Okay, so that is about connective tissues and our example blood tissue. Is that clear, Lamai? Others? Then okay, others, give me a thumbs up.
Dear teacher.
Okay. If you have questions, please do ask. And let's move on. Muscle tissue. This is our third type of tissue in the human body, right? That is muscle tissue, as in the animal body. Muscle, this is very interesting. Right? Not just in the O-level past papers, I mean, even the provincial papers and the school papers make good a point. Okay? Muscle tissue is made up of muscle cells. Lamai samaneng muscle cells tika digai. Right? Muscle. Normally cell එකක් වම අපිනේ round එකක් හරි කොටු එකක් හරි hexagon pentagon ඒ වගේවනේ මැවිලා පේන්නේ. But actually the cells can be different shapes and sizes. That's okay. But muscle cells are kind of elongated. සාමාන්‍යයෙන් ටිකක් දිග muscle cells තමයි තියෙන්නේ. ඒක හින්දා අපි muscle cells වලටම we sometimes call it muscle fibers. So if I say muscle fibers, I don't mean that there are separate fibers. What I mean is muscle cells. The muscle cells වලටම තමයි අපි muscle fibers කියලා කියන්නේ. Let's see the features. Very important. Muscle fibers have the ability of contraction and relaxation. That is pretty obvious, right? මම කතා කරද්දී I can freely move my mouth. Of course, මෙතන jaw එක තියෙනවා, ඒක වෙනම කතාවක්. But මගේ මේ පැත්තේ muscles ඔක්කොම හරිම flexible නේ. That's why I can move my like mouth when I'm speaking like this. So when I'm moving my hand, මගේ මෙතන muscle එක වැඩ කරනවා. මගේ දැන් මෙහෙම මෙහෙම කරනකොට muscle එක දිගෑරෙනවා, නැවෙනවා, දිගෑරෙනවා, නැවෙනවා. යට muscles, you know, this is called the bicep muscle, the tricep muscle, facial muscles. And then if you like let's say ab exercises ගොඩක් කරොත් your muscles kind of get toned, you know. So ab exercise වල ගොඩක් කරන්නේ like kind of contracting and relaxing your muscles. When you're walking, your muscles are constantly working. Muscles ඇදෙනවා, ආයි හිටපු විදිහට එනවා. ඇදෙනවා, හිටපු විදිහට එනවා. That is what we call contraction and then relaxation. So all muscles have that property. That is very important. That is why muscles are so flexible and they can move very well. They possess a nervous supply. When there is a certain sensation in your muscles, you can feel it. That is because there's a nervous supply. Hitanna, let's say there's a child running a marathon. Hitanna muscle එකක sprain වෙනස්. ඇදිලා හරි මොන හරි වෙනවා. ටක් ගාලා එක දැනෙනවනේ. දැනලා එක්ක එතන දුවන එක නවතිනවා, pain killers ගන්නවා, මොන හරි අර muscle එක පැන්නවම වගේ මොනවද කරනවනේ. You know, there are things ඔය මේ physiotherapist ලා කරන්නේ. So ඒ වගේ, you know, you feel it when there's something wrong with your muscles. If there's a muscle sprain or like a cramp in your muscles, you feel it. That is because muscles have a nervous supply. And let's say your muscles are tired, or හිතන්න high එකක් එහෙම යනවා කියලා. ඔයගේ leg muscles exhaust වෙනවා. මහන්සි මසල් එකට මහන්සි. එතකොට තමයි ඔයාලට පේන් එකක් දැනෙන්නේ. කකුල රිදෙන්නේ, right? Or let's say you're doing something that involves your hands a lot. Let's say painting or drawing or like මොනා හරි දෙයක් කරද්දී ඔයාගේ අත රිදෙන්නේ මොකද? Your muscles are exhausted and your muscles have a nervous supply, so you can feel it. They possess a good blood supply, so they receive oxygen and nutrients at a higher rate. Make a very important. Muscles lamai constantly work in muscles හැම වෙලේම වැඩ කරනවා, right? ඔයා දිව්වත් ඇවිද්දත් ඒ විතරක් නෙවෙයි ඔයාගේ බොඩි එක ඇතුළෙත් muscles තියෙනවා. stomach එක වටේට muscles තියෙනවා, heart එකේ muscles තියෙනවා, හැම තැනම තියෙනවා. Muscles constantly වැඩ කරන හින්දා ඒකට oxygen, nutrients එහෙම දෙන්න ඕනේ. ඒකේද there's a very good blood supply. You know blood is the one that brings the nutrients and oxygen and all that නේ. එයානේ transport කරන්නේ. ඒකද muscles වලට හොඳ blood supply එකක් තියෙනවා. Muscle එකක් ඉරුණොත් එහෙම there will be blood flow. So I personally watch a lot of professional wrestling. But if you watch wrestling or fighting or stuff like that, or ගොඩක් වෙලාවට මේ fight කරද්දී එහෙම you know, there was this one match that I watched where එක wrestler කෙනෙක්ගේ මේ skin එක එළියෙන් ඉරිලා කැපිලා මොනවත් වෙලා නැහැ. එළියෙන් the skin is just there. But ඇතුලේ තනිකර රතු වෙලා. That is because inside under the skin muscle එකක් ඇදිලා හරි මොන හරි වෙලා blood flow එකක් වෙනවා. Right? So එතකොට ඒ වගේ muscles have a very good blood supply. Okay? Yes. So ගොඩක්. Yes, Ashwita. Any question?
I couldn't hear you before.
Now can you hear me?
Yeah, now I could hear you.
Which part did you miss?
Like, where you were saying about the wrestler that.
Yeah. So what I was saying was that let's say fight කරන කට්ටියගේ උනත් even if outside there's nothing but inside muscles ඉරිලා ලේ හැම ඉන්න පුළුවන්. ඒක එළියෙන් පේන්නේ නැතුව ඇතුළේම රතු වෙලා තියෙනවා. That is because muscles have a very good blood supply. Okay? And the reason for that is because muscles are constantly working, so they need the nutrients and the oxygen. This is one of the effectors in responding to coordination. ඒ කියන්නේ මොකක්ද? Effectors කියලා කියන්නේ ඔයා respond කරන විදිය. Let's say you saw a dog barking and running towards you. Right? And a cute බවෙක් නේ බව. Cute but like ඔයා හපන්න වගේ මාරම සැර බවෙක් ඔයාගේ පැත්තට දුවන් එනවා. How would you respond? You will either stay and fight the dog or you will run away. Right? බවව දකින්න එක ඒක process වෙන එකේ ඔක්කොම අවුලක් නැහැ. ඊට පස්සේ ඔයා respond කරන විදිය ඔයා කොහොමද respond කරන්නේ? එක්කෝ ඉඳලා fight කරන නැත්නම් දුවනවා. Respond කරන්න muscles ඕනෙමයි. Okay, muscles අනිවාර්යෙන්ම ඕනේ respond කරන්න. Let's say you're riding a bus every day to classes or to school or whatever. Your bus is leaving. Or pena bus එක දැන් ඔයා මෙතන hall එකට ළඟටම යනකොට bus එක යනවා. So you would quickly run, no? So bus එක දකින්නවා ඒක ඔයාගේ brain එකේ process වෙනවා ඒ ඔක්කොම හරි. Then how would you respond? You will run towards the bus. Okay? So ඒ වගේ හැම වෙලෙම respond කරන්න. Effect එකක් කියන්නේ respond කරන්න use කරන කෙනෙක්. You can even take a note here. Effector means what is used to respond. What is used to respond. So effectors are mostly muscles. Okay. Then there are three types of muscle tissue. There is smooth muscle tissue, there is skeletal muscle tissue, and there is cardiac muscle tissue. මේ තුනම මම ටෙක්ස්ට්බුක් එකේ තියෙනවට වඩා මම සමරයිස් කරා මේක ගොඩක් ලේසි වෙයි පාඩම් කරන්න. මොකද ප්‍රශ්න අහන්නේ මෙහෙම. You need to know how they appear. For that you need the image. Then there are structural features. Again, structure wise මොනවාද තියෙන්නේ. Then there are functional features. Function එක පැත්තෙන් ගත්තාම කොහොමද ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ features? ඒක වෙන වෙනම පාඩම් කරගන්න එක තමයි හොඳ. මොකද එහෙම තමයි ප්‍රශ්න අහන්නේ. So smooth muscle tissue එක ගත්තොත් you can see here. This is the smooth muscle tissue. මෙන්න මේ වගේ තියෙන්නේ මොනවාද? මේවා තමයි cells, smooth muscle cells. ඒවට අපි කියනවා cells වලට fibers කියලා කියනවානේ muscles වල. So smooth muscle cells or smooth muscle fibers මේ තියෙන ඒවා. So nucleus එකකින්ම තියෙනවා. So these are the smooth muscle cells or muscle fibers in the smooth tissue. Let's look at the structural features. Spindle shaped. ළමයි සාමාන්‍ය spindle shaped කියලා කියන්නේ මෙහෙම මැද හරිය thick වෙලා දෙපැත්ත thin or දෙපැත්ත narrow නම් මැද හරිය wide වෙලා දෙපැත්ත narrow නම් this shape is called spindle shape. So මෙයාල එහෙම නේද මේ corners are very narrow. See? Corners are very narrow. But මැද හරිය පොඩ්ඩක් thick. That is what we call spindle shape. That is what we call spindle shape. Okay? The mid part is a bit wider and the corners are very narrow. Unbranched. What make a smooth muscle tissue cell like if you look at the entire smooth muscle tissue, you can't see branches. There are different cells individually, but there are no branches. So we call it unbranched. Then uninucleated. එතන bracket එකක් දාගන්න ළමයි uninucleated කියන්නේ one nucleus. Put a bracket there and write one nucleus. Uninucleated means one nucleus. So මේ බලන smooth muscle tissues මේ picture එක බැලුවමත් පේනවා see මෙතන එක මෙයාගේ මේ cell එකට එක nucleus එකයි මේ cell එකට එක nucleus එකයි මෙයාට එකයි likewise all cells have just one nucleus, therefore we call them uninucleated. Then no striations. ළමයි මේ අනිත් දෙන්නගේ බලන්න මෙන්න මේ ඉරිරි වගේ තියෙනවා නේද මේ ඉරිරි මෙහෙම තියෙන්නේ පල්ලෙහාට ආච්චි මෙහෙම ඉරිරි තියෙන්නේ these are called striations, right? Even in this one there are striations. See මෙහෙම පල්ලෙහාට ඉරිරි තියෙන්නේ these are called striations. But if you take the smooth muscle tissue there are no striations. Actually මෙහෙම ඉරිරි වගේ මොනවත් නැහැ නේ මේකනේ. ළමයි striations නැති හින්දා තමයි we call them smooth. Smooth කියලා කියන්නේ striations නැති හින්දා. So they don't have striations. These are the structural features. ඒ කියන්නේ structure wise මේවා ටික තමයි features ටික. Functions බලමු. Do not become fatigue easily. ලේසියෙන් fatigue වෙන්නේ. Fatigue කියන්නේ ළමයි මහන්සිය. දැන් හිතන්න මම මෙහෙම දිගටම කතා කර කර හිටියා කියලා ටිකක් කලකට මම කට රිදෙනවා. Right? Let's say පැය 3-4ක් මෙහෙම කතා කර කර හිටියොත් කට රිදෙනවා. That is because my facial muscles they got fatigue. ඒගොල්ලන්ට මහන්සිය දැනෙනවා. ඔයා ගොඩක් hike එකක් ගියොත් එහෙම කලුකු කන්දක් එහෙම නැග්ගොත් එහෙම you feel the fatigue. Right? හැබැයි smooth muscle tissue එකක් තියෙනවා නම් you don't feel the fatigue. And smooth muscle tissue තියෙන තැන්වල you don't feel the fatigue. An example would be, let's say, urinary bladder. Urine store in urinary bladder. If you take urinary bladder, that is made up of smooth muscle tissue. Okay? So urinary bladder also constantly have to work. Good fatigue. Okay? So it doesn't get fatigue easily. Then if a stomach, uterus, smooth muscle tissues. Locations දාලා නැහැ නේද මෙතන. මෙතන if you all have space can you please put the locations? එන්න මම දාන තැන කියන්න. මෙන්න මෙහෙම යටින් locations ටික මම මේ note එකේ දාලා නැහැ. You can take respiratory tract, digestive tract, ඊට පස්සේ uterus, bladder, there are blood vessels. They are all locations where you can see smooth muscle tissues. It's a respiratory tract. Digestive tract. Let's say you're going on a walk, like a hike or something. Let's say you feel tired because your legs are hurting. Legs hurt when leg muscles fatigue. Your legs start to hurt. Then you can just sit down and rest. Let's say I'm talking like this and my facial muscles, they feel like I feel a pain or they feel numb. That's because they're fatigued. Then I can take a rest and stop talking and give you an exercise to do. That is something that I sometimes do. Let's say, let's say you're a dancer, you keep dancing, and then after some time you feel certain pains in your body. Then you know I can muscles fatigue, so you take a rest. හැබැයි හිතන්න digestive tract එක or respiratory digestive tract එකකටත් වඩා respiratory tract එක respiratory tract එකට fatigue වුණා කියලා it can't stop the work. It has to continuously breathe because you need to breathe to survive. Your urinary bladder, your blood vessels, they constantly have to work. ඒක හින්දා ලේසියෙන් fatigue වෙන්නේ නැහැ. හැබැයි සමහර වෙලාවට rarely fatigue වෙන්න පුළුවන්. එමෙ සමහර ලාවට ඔය blood vessels වල ඊට පස්සේ uterus, bladder ඒ වගේ තැන්වල muscles strain වෙන්න පුළුවන්. Muscles strain වෙනවා කියලා එකක් තියෙනවා. That is because when they feel fatigue. But ලේසියෙන් එහෙම වෙන්නේ නැහැ. Okay? ගොඩක් වයසකට තමයි ඒක වෙන්නේ because their muscles are a bit weak. But otherwise ඒක ලේසියෙන් වෙන දෙයක් නෙවෙයි. Okay? Control involuntarily. Can you control how your digestive tract works? No, you can't. You cannot control how your bladder works. How the smooth muscles contract and relax. Uterus, ඒ වගේ body එක ඇතුලේ මේ smooth muscles වලින් හැදිලා තියෙන තැන් වල you can't really control. That is, therefore we say they are controlled involuntarily. Voluntarily control වෙනවා කියන්නේ අපි හිතලා control කරනවා. අපි හිතලා කරනවා. But controlled involuntary means අපිට control එකක් නැහැ. We cannot control just by thinking about it and do it. එහෙම කරන්න බෑ. Okay? So smooth muscle tissues, they are controlled involuntarily and they do not become fatigued easily. That's about smooth muscle tissue. Any question before we move on? All clear? Give me a thumbs up, please. All right, skeletal muscle tissue. This is our second type of muscle tissue. This is how it appears. You can see how it appears here. Okay. They are long cylindrical. මම මේ ඔක්කොම වගේ highlight කරේ මේ ඔක්කොම important හින්දා. See? මේ බලන්න මෙන්න මේක විතර නිකන් එක cell එකක් වගේ. Look at this one cell. Sorry. If you look at this is kind of like one cell. See? දිගයි cylinder එකක් වගේ. They are long and cylindrical. Okay. Unbranched. Again, you can't see branches here. Ne? Branches hadila atu wage naha. So unbranched. Multinucleated. Give me 1 second, Lamai. Okay, Lamai. Saman, so the question is, can we say can't control for the word in control involuntarily? We can't control because that is not the accurate way of saying it. Samar Deval, like in certain answers, the wording has to be quite okay based on science. So, eka hinda better to write control involuntarily. Okay. Okay. So, skeletal muscle tissue, now they are multinucleated. That may picture again clearly pained in a hair. Habai eka cell leka, eka fiber gathod. There are several nuclei in one cell or one fiber. So, several nuclei, we call it multinucleated. ඒ විතරක් නෙවෙයි ළමයි mitochondria ගොඩක් තියෙනවා. What is the function of mitochondria? What is the function of mitochondria?
Produce energy.
Yes, produce energy. So if there's a lot of mitochondria in the skeletal muscle tissue, that should mean that the skeletal muscle tissue needs a lot of energy because mitochondria's function is producing energy. Skeletal muscle tissue එකට ගොඩක් energy කියන්නේ skeletal muscle tissue කියන්නේ ගොඩක් energy ඕන tissue එකක්. Actually ළමයි most of the tissues that we can control. Like හිතනවා දුවනකොට leg muscles you control. Hand muscles like bicep, tricep, other muscles you control. So ඒ වගේ ගොඩක් activity ලොකු activities වලට ඕනේ muscles වල තමයි skeletal muscle tissues වලින් හැදිලා තියෙන්නේ. Therefore they need a lot of energy. That's why there's a lot of mitochondria. In addition to that, there's a lot of nuclei, so we call it multinucleated. Striations are present. So මේක තමයි මම පෙන්නුවේ. මෙහෙම ඉරිරි වගේ like there are these vertical bars or rows or whatever you call it. Those are what we call striations. So there are striations in skeletal muscle tissue. Smooth එකේ තිබුණ නෑ skeletal එකේ තියෙනවා. Let's look at functions. Functional features. Become fatigued easily. Okay, let's say you're again the same example, you're going up a hike. So at some point your legs will start to hurt. That is because the leg muscles they are fatigued, right? ඒ කියන්නේ ඒවා exhaust වෙලා. ඒතකොට රිදෙනවා, pain එක එනවා. And also control voluntarily. ඔක්කොම skeletal muscle tissues තියෙන අපිට control කරන්න පුළුවන් තැන්වල. We can control. Let's say you're running, you're walking, your legs, hands. When I'm teaching like this, I'm moving my hands. When I'm typing, I'm moving my hands. And I'm moving my neck. And then I'm moving my facial muscles, right? So all of these are made of skeletal muscle tissue. Therefore, we can control, and they also at the same time they become fatigued easily. That is because of the fatigue, right? So examples you can write for locations. Leg muscles, bicep and tricep muscles, then facial muscles. Any place where you can control, right? That is where skeletal muscles tissues are found. Finally, the last type. Any questions in skeletal muscle tissue, or is everything clear? Give me a thumbs up.
Clear, teacher.
Others? Okay. Then our third type of tissue is cardiac muscle tissue. Okay. Cardiac muscle tissue. What do you think is the meaning of the term cardiac? If you know. What does cardiac mean? Yes, the heart. Cardiac means the heart. Now for smooth muscle tissue, there were several locations where you were able to find smooth muscle tissues like respiratory tract, digestive tract. Actually, most of the internal organs, smooth muscle tissue. Skeletal muscle tissue, there are multiple locations. Wherever you can control voluntarily, you can find skeletal muscle tissue there. But cardiac muscle tissue, right? That is the heart. You can only find the cardiac muscle tissue in the heart of vertebrates. Vertebrate heart take tamai cardiac muscle tissue. Okay, that's the only place where you can find cardiac muscle tissue. Excuse me. So, look at this structure. මෙන්න මේක ඇවිල්ලා එක සෙල් එකක්. This part is one cell. මේ ඇවිල්ලා එක සෙල් එකක්. Then this part is another cell. මෙහෙම තව ඉස්සරහට continue වෙනවා ඇති ඒ ටික නැහැ. Then this part is another cell. This part is another cell. This part is another cell. ඔහොම තමයි තියෙන්නේ. So now if you remember in the skeletal muscle tissue, the cells were pretty long, right? Long and cylindrical. හැබැයි cardiac muscle tissue එකේ ගත්තාම the cells are not long. They're short. You can see that, no? Compared to the skeletal muscle tissue, cardiac muscle tissue, the fibers or the cells are pretty short. So we say that they have short cells. Now, unlike smooth muscle tissue and the skeletal muscle tissue, what you can see in the cardiac muscle tissue is that it's branched. You can see branches. එකම cell එකේ branches දෙකක් තියෙනවා. So there are multiple branches like this. Therefore, it is branched. Then this is also uninucleated. So just like smooth muscle tissue, cardiac muscle tissue is uninucleated. ඒ කියන්නේ එක cell එකක නැත්නම් එක fiber එකක ඉන්නේ එක nucleus එකයි. Okay? Striations are present that you can see මේ ඉරිරි වගේ තියෙන. There are striations. Also, ළමයි, there is something called intercalated discs. දැන් skeletal muscle tissue, cardiac muscle tissue දෙකේම තියෙනවානේ striations. හැබැයි intercalated discs you cannot find in skeletal muscle tissue. It's only found in cardiac muscle tissue. Intercalated disc එකක් කියලා කියන්නේ ළමයි cells separate වෙන තැන ටිකක් thick disc එකක් තියෙනවා. ඒ disc එකෙන් වෙන්නේ contractions and relaxations convenient කරන එක. කියන්නේ ලේසියෙන් කරනවා කියන්නේ contractions, relaxations is easy to do with the intercalated disc. It makes the tissue stronger. Okay? So there are intercalated discs. If we look at the functional features, they never become fatty. ළමයි අපේ heart එක හැදිලා තියෙන cardiac muscle tissue එකෙන්. If your brain shut down, you can still be alive. Right? ඒ කියන්නේ ඔයාට තනිකර කිසිම දෙයක් හිතන්න බෑ. You don't have conscience, nothing, but still you will live. But the moment your heart stops beating or your heart stops contracting and relaxing, that's the moment we die. Okay? Therefore, since the heart is made up of the cardiac muscle tissue, it can never be fatigued. හිතනවා heart එක constantly beat වෙනවනේ. The respiration also constantly happen. That is true. But ගොඩක් අයට respiration හරිම light. එයාට එක මෙහෙම යනවා. ඒක හරිම light. ඒකින්ද respiratory tract එකට එහෙම ලොකු fatigue එකක් නැහැ. අපි forcefully හුස්ම ගත්තොත් තමයි ගොඩක් අමාරු respiratory tract එකට. ඒකයි මම ඔයාලට එකපාරක් කිව්වත් දන්නේ නැහැ. ඔය ගොඩක් අයට ඕගලන් helium balloons ඒ වගේ අරගෙන අර ඒකේ gas එක කටට ගන්න. And then it makes your voice different and it makes your voice a little high pitched. That's a fun thing to do, but you shouldn't do it too often. Right? මම දන්න ළමෙක් හිටියා like I think they owned a helium balloon business. ඒගොල්ලන්ට party business එකක් තිබ්බේ. So they were like event planning and like setting up එහෙම පොඩි ළමෙක් නෙමෙයි classes ආපු ළමෙක්. So that boy also goes to like helping and all that. But he used to like constantly helium මේවා කරන එක, and then there was something wrong with his voice or something. ඊට පස්සේ ડોක්ටර් කියලා තියෙනවා ඒ කියන්නේ ඒකම හින්දා නෙවෙයි වෙන්නේ නැති. but ඒ වගේ දේවලුත් කරන්න එපා කියලා. ගොඩක් strain වෙනවා වගේ respiratory tract එක. Imagine doing that like once every day. That's obviously not good, no? Right? ඒක මන් දන්නේ එකක් දිගටම කරන් ආවෙලාද නැත්නම් එක කාලයක වැඩිපුර කළාද කොහොමද කියලා. But all I know is that it's not good for your respiratory tract. Just doing it once in a while is okay because it's fun. But I have not tried it. All I know is if you do it a lot, it's not good. Okay. But anyways, now respiratory tract එක වගේ එහෙම forcefully breathe කරොත් අරන otherwise එහෙම ලොකු case එකක් නැහැ. lightly breathe කරන්නේ, right? So ඒකෙන් එහෙම fatigue වෙන්නේ නැහැ. හැබැයි heart does like proper beating. Right? Heart එක හැම වෙලේම වැඩ. ඒකත් නිකන් මේ light වැඩ නෙවෙයි. Heavy work. Heart has to pump blood to the whole body. මුළු body එකේ හැම තැනටම spread වෙන විදිහට pump කරන්න ඕනේ blood. ආයේ blood එක ආයේ heart එකට ගේන්න ඕනේ. So ඊට පස්සේ ඒ heart එක තනින් තන එක circulate කරනවා. So heart is not a joke. It does some really big work, very like hard work. Okay? එතකොට හිතන්න ඒ වැඩ ටිකත් එක්ක heart එක pain වුණොත්. Again, let's say it got fatigued then. hike එකක් යනකොට කකුල leg muscles fatigue වුණොත් you feel the pain and you know it as an indicator and you stop. But what about the heart? Let's say the cardiac muscle tissue got fatigued and it pained. Can you stop? You can't stop. You have to it has to continuously beat for you to survive. Ekahinda cardiac muscle tissue is designed in a certain way that it never becomes fatigued. Never. And it is also controlled involuntarily. Of course, you can't control the heart. Okay? මේ වගල දැනගන්න ඕනේ එකක් තමයි pictures දුනහම ඔයගලන්ට identify කරගන්න පුළුවන් වෙනෝනේ. That is actually pretty straightforward. There's nothing much, right? ඊට පස්සේ shape එක ගත්තොත් එහෙම දැන් මම තුන compare කරලා ඔයගලන්ට පෙන්නන්නම්. Then you know how to write the answers. Basic structure එක appearance wise ගත්තොත් එහෙම මුලින්ම පේනවා මෙයාගේ spindle shape එකක් තියෙනවා. මෙයාගේ long cylinders තියෙනවා. මෙයාගේ short cells තියෙනවා. Then branched unbranched කියලා ගත්තොත් එහෙම මෙයා unbranched, මෙයා branched. So smooth and skeletal unbranched, but cardiac is branched. Then nucleus එක ගත්තොත් එහෙම smooth muscle tissue එකයි cardiac muscle tissue එකයි, they are both uninucleated. There is only one nucleus. But only in skeletal muscle tissue you can find several nuclei. So it's multinucleated. Then striations ගත්තොත් එහෙම smooth muscle tissue වල striations නෑ, skeletal and cardiac both have striations. In addition to that, cardiac has something special, that is intercalated discs. Function-wise, smooth do not become fatigued easily, but could happen rarely. Skeletal muscle tissues, they become fatigued easily, but cardiac never become fatigued. Then control-wise, smooth muscle tissue is controlled involuntarily, skeletal muscle tissue is controlled voluntarily, and cardiac muscle tissue is also like the smooth, it is also controlled involuntarily. Now, if I ask you a question, it's very simple. If you note you can but questions maybe the question what are the structural similarities between smooth muscle tissue and cardiac muscle tissue? You can put in the chat box or you can unmute and tell me whatever.
Tisha, the shape.
Nika shape you have to properly say what it is.
Smooth muscle tissue is a spindle shape one. Cardiac muscle tissue is a short, like long cylindrical. It is a long cylindrical shape.
No, cardiac muscle tissue is not long cylinders, it's short cells. But
Short.
that is, yeah, but that is not a similarity. I got one answer in the chat box. Okay.
Uninucleated.
Yes. Yes, Risindi also, yes, it is uninucleated. It has one nucleus. However, involuntarily controlled කියන එක දාන්න බෑ. මොකද මම අහලා තියෙන structural similarities, not functional. Then you can only write uninucleated. Similarities අහන්න. Then if I ask you, මේකට හැමෝම if you let's do this. So chat box එකේ දාන්න. ඒතර හැමෝගේම answers අපිට ගන්න පුළුවන්. Everybody put in the chat box. Everybody put an answer. හැමෝම answer එකක් දාන්න. Amodi, Metna, Evindi, Mayundi, Methmi, Ashwita, Risindi, Senet, Tinura, Savinu, Randira, Usandi, Tasuni, Desindu.
There's something wrong with the question. It says, what are the structural differences between cardiac muscle tissue and cardiac muscle tissue?
Ah. Kerita. Thanks for pointing that out with me. Skeletal, yes. Structural differences between skeletal muscle tissue and cardiac muscle tissue. Okay, now put the answer in the chat box. Everybody, put an answer in the chat box. Structural differences between skeletal muscle tissue and cardiac muscle tissue. Yes, Mayumdi, correct. Others can't figure out. Or still typing the answer. Cell shape and size you have to be specific. What exactly are the differences? Striations are present is a similarity, not a difference. Okay, a lot of you gave the answer, so I will say that yes, branched, unbranched because skeletal muscle tissue, it's unbranched and cardiac muscle tissue is branched. Anything else?
These are multinucleated and uninucleated.
Yes, put in the chat box, Ashwita. Got your answer in the chat box, yes. Okay, no worries. Voluntarily control that is functional features, structural manghane. So yes, correct. Skeletal muscle tissue is multinucleated. Smooth muscle tissue is uninucleated. Anything else? Regarding the mitochondria situation, dekeve mitochondria thiyena. The only difference is that in skeletal muscle tissue, there's more mitochondria. Otherwise, cardiac muscle tissue also needs energy. There's definitely mitochondria, but the difference is skeletal needs more energy. So there are more mitochondria. Voluntary, involuntary because it is a functional difference. Functional. Mame question is structural. So I did get the answer somewhere. Another one would be skeletal muscle tissue has long cells. Cardiac muscle tissue has short cells. So skeletal and cardiac gatama, skeletal has long cells, cardiac has short cells, skeletal is multinucleated, cardiac is uninucleated, skeletal is unbranched and cardiac is branched. Then now everybody put an answer in the chat box. Yeah, difference intercalated disc skeletal muscle tissue intercalated discs cardiac intercalated discs. So you can even put that. The new question is, what are the functional similarities between smooth muscle tissue and cardiac muscle tissue? Ekak kiwa nang ඇති chat box එකේ දාන්න. Yes. They are both controlled involuntarily. Fatigue එකක් දාන්න පුළුවන්. I think ඒ කියන්නේ similarity එකක් yes because cardiac skeletal නම් ටක් ගාලා fatigue වෙනවනේ අර දෙන්න එහෙම fatigue වෙන්නේ නැහැ. Cardiac never become fatigue so ඒකත් දාන්න පුළුවන් as a similarity. Then so high mitochondrial density no stick to what we learned. අපි ඉගෙන ගත්ත ඒවා වලින් විතරක් answer කරන්න. Okay, don't try to think too much. Just because අපි දැන් මාර simple points ටිකක් ඉගෙන ගත්තේ. So answer using only those simple points. Atine, I have run out of questions. Okay, good job. We will do some more questions later on, right? Okay, so one last time, y'all tell me if muscle tissue is all clear to you. Thumbs up. Then we'll move on to nervous. Others? Okay, nervous tissue. You know, nervous tissue is what's responsible for transmitting messages, right? So let's read here and see. Structural unit of the nervous system is the nerve cell or neuron. Now you know a tissue is a collection of cells. Excuse me. You know a tissue is a collection of cells. So a nervous tissue is made up of nerve cells, right? Nerve cells වලට අපි සාමාන්‍යයෙන් මෙතන පොඩි typing mistake එකක් තියෙනවා ළමයි. Make a neutron නෙවෙයි neuron. Can you correct that please? Strike it off and write neuron. Neuron. So nerve cell එකටම තමයි ළමයි අපි neuron කියලා කියන්නේ. Nerve cell is what we call a neuron. So nervous tissue is made up of the neuron, which is the nerve cell. මෙතනත් එක හදාගන්න. මෙතනත් හදාගන්න neurons කියලා. Here also. Neurons are able to transmit impulses. Neurons are able to transmit impulses. So impulses can be messages. Okay, on like a bracket set with and messages. So when you appear, example, when you see a dog running towards you, barking and all, you see that vision from your eyes, you hear the dog barking from your ears. Both of these messages go to your brain. ඊට පස්සේ brain එක තමයි කියන්නේ මෙහෙම කරන්න කියලා legs වලටයි hands වලටයි message එකක් දෙනවා දුවන්න කියලා. එතන messages set එකක් යනවානේ. From your eyes you saw it and it was sent to the brain. ඔන්න එතන එක message එකක් ගියා. From your ears you heard the dog barking, that message was also sent to the brain. Then brain එකේ message එකක් ඇව්වා legs වලට and hands වලට to run. So likewise in our body there's a lot of messages sent, right? When I ask you මම උගන්ට කිව්වොත් මරක කපාගෙන මේක ලියා ගන්න කියලා මම මේක කිව්වා ඔයගලන්ට ඒක ඇහුණා, right? You heard it from your ears, you also see me from your eyes. A message එක brain එකට ගියා, brain එකෙන් තමයි කියන්නේ ආ දැන් ඒක ලියා ගන්න. So you move your hands, you take the pen, you write it. So ඒ වගේ මේ messages වලට තමයි අපි impulses කියලා කියන්නේ. So transmitting impulses or communication, that is all done by the nervous tissue. Okay? So as I said, the nervous tissue is made up of nerve cells. Nerve cells are also called neurons. Let's look at the features of a neuron. Neurons are composed of two parts, right? මෙන්න මේක ළමයි ඇවිල්ලා එක neuron එකක්. Right? You can see one neuron here in this picture. This is one example of a neuron. So මේ neuron එකේ there are two parts. එකක් තමයි cell body එක. Okay, so you can see the cell body here. මේ මැද තියෙන කොටස අපි කියන්නේ cell body කියලා. This part is a cell body. මේ තියෙන cell body කියලා label උත් කළා. Then there are nerve fibers. Nerve fibers ළමයි මෙන්න මෙතන මේ පොඩි පොඩි branches ඇවිල්ලා තියෙන්නේ. These little branches. These little branches, they are nerve fibers. Then there's this bigger branch that is also nerve fiber. Cell body එකකින් මෙහෙම අතු අතු වගේ යන්නේ ඔක්කොම they are nerve fibers. Okay? එහෙම කොහෙද තියෙන්නේ? Chordates ලා කියලා කියන්නේ vertebrates ලා. Okay, so nervous tissue is found in chordates body කියලා කිව්වොත් that means nervous tissue is found in vertebrate body. Vertebrates වගේ body එකේ තමයි තියෙන්නේ. So there are two parts as cell body and nerve fibers. Okay, මැද තියෙන කෙනා cell body, මේ අතු අතු වගේ branches ඇවිල්ලා තියෙන ඔක්කොම කියන්නේ අපි nerve fibers කියන්නේ. Let's look at each of these types. Let's first talk about the cell body. Cell body ke nucleus එක. Nucleus now we can clearly see here. There are also mitochondria. Mitochondria apne penne naha, but mitochondria are there. Then there's the Golgi body. Golgi body wali monada kara. What's the function of Golgi body? Anybody who remembers what the function of Golgi body is?
Teacher, the function of
Golgi body. Golgi.
Production of secretory.
Yes. Production of secretory substances, packaging them and transporting them. That is what the Golgi body does, right? Mataka tiyagana lamai, it cannot have mataka tibbe. You also have two answers in the chat box. Yeah. No, one answer. Yes, Mayumbi and Ashwita, correct. Also, there are endoplasmic reticulum. So we know in endoplasmic reticulum, there is a rough endoplasmic reticulum and the smooth endoplasmic reticulum. What is the function of rough endoplasmic reticulum?
Transportation of proteins within the cells.
Yes, transportation of proteins. Very good. Rough endoplasmic, what it does is transporting proteins. What about smooth endoplasmic reticulum?
Synthesizing and transporting lipids and
Yes.
steroids.
Yes, good. Synthesizing lipids and steroids. So, ape body ke moga dekha kiwe. So, some people they get steroids injected, so they become bulky. But steroids inject kala vitrak neve ape body ke naturally steroids haden, right? In addition to that, only like these bodybuilders and all those people, they get steroids injected so that their body looks bulkier, right? But anyhow, ape body ke naturally hadena lipids komat hadena, steroids also hadena. A hadena smooth endoplasmic reticulum ke. So it not only makes or synthesizes the lipids and steroids, it also transports them. Okay. So me cell body ke athare thiyena. Then nerve fibers. Nerve fibers valatlamai jati dekak thiyena. One is the axon, the other one is dendrites. Let me zoom this in. Me cell body ekeng yanane me digga branch ekak, digga fiber ekak. That long fiber, we call it the axon. Then you can also see like the short fibers में branches या दिलोगे में short fibers दिए. These short fibers, we call them dendrites. So when we talk of now, आपे क्यों neuron ने क्या जाते देखते ना, that's the cell body and there are all these fibers. From those fibers, the longer fiber, we call it the axon. The short little fibers, we call them dendrites. Okay. Axon transmits impulses away from the cell body. Dendrites receive stimuli and transmit them towards the cell body. एक है लम्हाई then neuron एक transportation में direction එකක් තියෙනවානේ, right? So let's say it gets a message, it will send it to the next neuron. එක neuron එකට message එකක් එනවා, එයා ඊළඟ neuron එකට යනවා. ඊළඟ neuron එකේ message එක අරගෙන ඊළඟ neuron එකට යනවා. So if you take a neuron, one side should be able to receive the message, the other side should be able to send that message to the next neuron. Neuron can message receive karane dendrites. Dendrites are the one that receives the message from one neuron. ඊළඟට message එක ඊළඟ neuron එකට pass කරන්නේ axon එකේ. So dendrites receive stimuli or the impulses. Axon transmits them away from the, like out of the neuron. Okay. Then axon එකේ තව තියෙනවා, most of the axons have a myelin sheath. The interrupted places are called nodes of Ranvier. This increases the speed of transmission of impulses. Again, something very important. I will tell you why. ළමයි ඕගොල්ලන් ඇක්සෝන් එක ගත් මේ ඇක්සෝන් එක කියන්නේ මේ ඇතුලේ තියෙන චූටි බටේ. That is the axon. ඒ එළිය තමයි මේ myelin sheath එක තියෙන්නේ. මේ රවුමට තියෙන that is a myelin sheath. myelin sheath එක continuously මෙහෙම යන්නේ නැහැ. යක් පොඩි කොටසක තියෙනවා ආයි බ්‍රේක් එකක් තියෙනවා ආයි පොඩි කොටසක තියෙනවා see. So මෙතන myelin sheath එකේ කොටසක් තියෙනවා ආයි බ්‍රේක් එකක් තියලා ආයි ඉතුරු එක තියෙන්නේ මෙතන. Again there's a break again here. Again break again here. Likewise there are breaks. Once again. මේ break වෙන තැන් වලට අපි කියනවා nodes of Ranvier. This thing is called the axon. Axon එක වටේ තියෙන sheath එකට කියනවා අපි myelin sheath කියලා. Myelin sheath is not continuous. The interrupted places like here, 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 and here we call them nodes of Ranvier. Nodes of Ranvier. So I will tell you why this myelin sheath and node of Ranvier are important. Okay. අපි axon එකක් ගත්තොත් මෙහෙමනේ. දැන් impulses යවනකොට impulses are messages. මේ messages axon එක දිගේ මෙහෙම යන්න ඕනේ. Continuously මෙහෙම axon එක දිගේ යනවා. It takes some time to do that. And you know, lamai, these impulses are actually like electric charges. මේ impulses කියලා කියන්නේ electric charges. So මේ electric charges axon එක දිගේ හිමින් සැරේ යනවා. Okay. Usually හරිනම් එහෙමනේ වෙන්නේ. හැබැයි දැන් මෙතන myelin sheath එකක් තියෙනවා. Myelin sheath is like a regiform. So electric charges kiwahama, you know, wires conduct electricity. You know, water conducts electricity. But you also know that regiform or plastics or like polythene, ඒ වගේම electricity conduct කරන්නේ නැහැ. අන්න ඒ වගේ electricity conduct කරන්නේ නැති කෙනෙක් තමයි myelin sheath කියලා කියන්නේ. Okay. So what happens is that දැන් මෙහෙම impulse එකක් කියන්නේ electric charge එකක්නේ. This electric charge will come here. මෙතනට ආවට පස්සේ දැන් පොඩි ප්‍රශ්නයක්. Why myelin sheath එක තියෙනවානේ? Myelin sheath is something that doesn't conduct electricity. දැන් මෙයා බලනවා මොකද මං කරන්නේ? එයාට පේනවා මෙතන පොඩි බ්‍රේක් මෙතන මේ එකම ළඟ තිබ්බට පොඩි බ්‍රේක් එකක් තියෙනවා. මෙන්න මෙතන බ්‍රේක් එකක් තියෙනවා. අන්න එතන නම් myelin sheath එක නෑ කියලා the electric charge will jump from here to here. එතන චුට්ටක් ගියාට පස්සේ ආයෙ myelin sheath එක තියෙනවා. myelin sheath එක තියෙනකොට යාර electricity conduct කරන්න බෑ. So එයා බලන ආයෙ break වෙන තැනක් තියෙනවාද? So මෙතන ආයෙ break වෙනවා. So the charge will jump to here. එහෙම electric charges are transported through the nodes of Ranvier. එතකොට මේ electric charge එක මේ මුළු distance එකම යන්න ඕනේ නැහැ. එයා මෙහෙම jump කර කර යනවා. That means that will increase the speed of transmission of impulses, right? Do you understand that? myelin sheath එක තියෙන ඒකට තමයි. For that purpose. That purpose means to increase the speed of impulses. myelin sheath එක කොහොම තියෙන්නේ? ඒතර myelin sheath එක තියෙනකොට electricity conduct කරන්නේ නැහැ. But myelin sheath is broken at certain points. That those points are called nodes of Ranvier. එතකොට charge එක myelin sheath එකෙන් යන්න බැරි හින්දා jump කරනවා ඊළඟ myelin sheath එක නැති තැනට. That's the node of Ranvier. So එතන ඉඳලා ආ ඊළඟ node of Ranvier එකට යනවා. Because myelin sheath does not conduct electricity, electric charges. Is it clear? May give me a thumbs up, please. Make a පොඩ්ඩක් කොහෙන් හරි note එකක් දාගන්නවද? I will also give a sentence here. මේ draw කරගන්න ඕන draw කරගෙන quickly make a note. තමයි මේක ස්කෙච් කරගෙන මම යට ලියා තියෙන සෙන්ටෙන්ස් එක ලියා ගන්න. සෙන්ටෙන්සස් දෙකක් විතර ලියා තියෙන එක ලියා ගන්න. ළමයි ඔයගොල්ලෝ මේක ලියා ගන්නකම් give me like 2 minutes. එතකන් ඔයගොල්ලෝ මේක ස්කෙච් කරගෙන මේ sentences තුන ලියා ගන්න. Give me 2 minutes. දැන් ළමයි wait Risinda, I will show you. මේට කිවරද? Give me a thumbs up if you are done. If you need more time, let me know. Okay. All right, let's move on. I will show you the highlighted parts as well. These are the features of neurons. Okay. Risindhi, let me know when you're done. Okay. Now, functions of neurons. Function of neuron is to receive information from receptors. හැම වෙලෙම ළමයි අපේ body එකේ මොන හරි information එකක් receive කරනවා නම් receive කරන්නේ sensory organs වලින්. That is eyes, ears, nose, tongue and skin. ඔය sensory organs පහ විතරනේ අපිට තියෙන්නේ. So whatever stimulus that you receive it using your sensory organs. එතකොට ඒ information ටික receive කරලා ඊට පස්සේ ඒක transmit කරන එක තමයි neurons වලින් කරන්නේ. So if you take one particular neuron, that neuron may receive information straight from a receptor, that is a sensory organ. Sensory organ taking information එන්නත් පුළුවන්. නැත්නම් එයාට කලින් ඉන්න neuron එකෙන් එයාට information එන්නත් පුළුවන්. Right? Then that neuron, what will it do? It will pass the information to another neuron, or it will pass the information to an effector. Remember effector? Effector කියන්නේ response. අපි respond කරන්නේ මොනවා පාවිච්චි කරලාද? We usually respond using muscles, right? So එතකොට neuron එකක් කරන්නේ, if you take one neuron, it will receive information from a sensory organ, or it will receive information from another neuron. And then it will pass the information either to another neuron or to an effector, which is a muscle. So information pass කරන එක තමයි neurons වලින් කරන්නේ. According to the function ළමයි, there are 3 types of neurons. එකක් sensory neuron, අනිත් එක motor neuron, අනිත් එක interneuron. If you are curious what each neuron does, you can check your textbook. මම මතක විදිහට ඒක extra knowledge. There was a part called extra knowledge. Check. Let me also get it. මම මේකට දැම්මේ නැහැ. මොකද මට අර මේ note එක ඕනුනේ. ඔයගොල්ලෝ පාඩම් කරන ලේසි වෙන පාඩම් කරන ඕන ටික විතරක් include කරලා හදන්න. That's why I made it like this. This was actually made for the previous batch. Yes, page 16. ඒකේ තියෙනවා sensory neuron එකෙන් මොකද්ද කරන්නේ? They transmit impulses from sensory organ එකෙන් කෙලින්ම receive කරලා ඒක කොහෙට හරි කාට හරි යවනවා. That is a sensory neuron. Motor neuron කියන්නේ කෙලින්ම effect එකට information යවන එක. Effect is the muscle. Interneuron කියන්නේ මැද ඉන්න එක්කෙනා. The pictures උත් තියෙනවා textbook එකේ. All right. So with that we have come to the end of the note, end of the lesson. Do you have any questions? Or is everything clear? Give me a thumbs up, please. Cells and fibers. What is the difference between cells and fibers? සාමාන්‍යයෙන් අපි, now if you take like let's say the plant cells, අපි plant cells වල කතා කරා, there are different types of cells and there are fibers. So එතකොට fibers වෙනස්. Actually fibers are a type of cell. මෙතන phloem fibers තියෙනවා, then මෙතන xylem fibers තියෙනවා, right? So fibers are a type of cell. But they are just like kendi wage තියෙන්නේ. They are very long and elongated. But if you take in animal tissue, especially the muscle tissue එකක සාමාන්‍යයෙන් අපි fiber එක කියලා කියන්නේ cell එකටම තමයි. The meaning of the fiber depends on the context. Then if you take plant tissues වල අපි sclerenchyma fibers තමයි, xylem fibers කියලා තියෙන්නේ, phloem fibers කියලා තියෙන්නේ. So they are dead structures. ඊට පස්සේ හැදලා තියෙන්නේ sclerenchyma lignin deposit කරලා ඒක අපි කතා කරන්නේ. So that's one type of fiber. They are also very fiber කියලා කියන්නේ ගොඩක් elongated shape එකක් තියෙන කට්ටියට. Then ඊළඟට අපි blood tissue එකේ කතා කරා, cells were separate, fibers were separate. එතන fibers කියන්නේ cells වලට නෙවෙයි. In the blood tissue or in connective tissue, cells are one thing, fibers are another thing. Fibers කියන්නේ මෙහෙම elongated වගේ net එක වගේ තියෙනවා. Cells කියන්නේ proper normal cells. ඊට පස්සේ muscle tissue එකේ fibers කියලා කියන්නේ cells වලටමයි. එතන fibers කියන්නේ වෙනස් එකක්. Here fibers mean muscle cells. Cells වලටම අපි කියන තව නමක් fibers because generally muscle cells are pretty long. That's why we call them fibers. So the meaning of the word fiber depends on the context. Okay. Is that clear, or do you want me to explain again? Okay. Any other questions? Seems like everything is clear to everybody, no? One second. Okay. එහෙනම් ළමයි, we will try the exercise from the textbook. Go to page 18 of the textbook. Textbook එකේ page 18 වලට යන්න. Did I send you the photosynthesis note last week? Huh? නැද්ද?
No, teacher.
Okay. No problem. I will send it today.
You only send the World of Life.
World of Life. Right. World of Life එක තව recording එකේ චූටි කොටසක් තියෙනවා. ඒකත් මම එවන්නම්. I will send the photosynthesis note to the group now. So that is what we need for next week. So please take a printout and come.
Teacher, you told that you'll say about the class for next week.
Yes. For next week class, I decided to have it because අපිට කලින් miss වෙච්ච classes අපි catch up කරා, if I remember right. Because on අපි 4 වෙනිදා මේ class එකේ නේද අපි extra class එකක් තිබ්බේ. Can't remember 4th.
Yes, teacher.
Yes, no, පොය දවසේ. So අර කලින් week එක miss වෙච්ච එකත් එක්ක, that's why I did that class. But anyways, I decided not to give the holiday on 27th. Because අපිට කලිනුත් පොඩක් මිස් වෙලා තියෙන හින්දායි ඒ හැමදේමත් එක්ක January වල we have 3rd, 10th, 17th, 24th and 3rd. In January we have 5 weeks, no? Yeah. Okay, lamai. So next week will be a holiday. It's a Christmas holiday, but අලුත් අවුරුද්දට කිසි holiday එකක් නැහැ. මොකද අලුත් අවුරුද්ද වැටෙන්නේ 3rd නේ. 3rd ඕගාට holiday එකක් දෙන්න ඕනේ නැති හින්දා. Let's make next week. Actually next week මා අනිත් classes නිවාඩු දුන්නා මේ grade 11 යන අලුත් කියන්නේ හෙට අනිද්දා grade 11 යන අය ඇරෙන්න. අනිත් අයට I gave the next week holiday. කියන්නේ ඔයගොල්ලන්ට කියන්නේ maths class එක නම් මම දුන්නේ නැහැ. Maths class එකේ this week we couldn't do it, so we'll probably do it next week. But yes, we will take the holiday for your class. Because it's all right. අපිට ප්‍රශ්නයක් නැහැ. මොකද January වල කියන්නේ එහෙම ප්‍රශ්නයක් නැහැ. We can anyways take a holiday. You deserve a holiday. But January වල කොහොමත් අපිට සති 5ක් තියෙන හින්දා it won't be an issue. Okay? ඔගාන්ට next week වැටෙන්නේ 27th නේ. Christmas වලට දවස් දෙකක් නේ. It's okay. Okay, then let's make it a holiday. Next week we'll make it a holiday. So the next class will be on 3rd, which is straight away for the exam. 3rd of January exam එක මම confirm කරවන්න. ආය මම එක group එකේ මට ගොඩක් අර group එකේ messages දැවෙනවා අඩුයි. So whether I put it in the group or not, you have to be prepared for the exam. Because the paper is already done. Paper is made. Right? එතකොට ඒක screenshot කරලා ඔයගොල්ලත් එක කරන්න විතරයි මට තියෙන්නේ. So මට අමතක වුණත් ඕගලන්ට මතක තියෙන්න ඕනේ 3rd exam එක තියෙනවා and that we are doing the paper. Okay? So yes. January වල අපිට third there's some poem falling the third right. Okay. 3rd, 10th, 17th, 24th, 31st. I am a bit calculative when it comes to classes because when I initially started classes years ago, I thought of doing it differently, in the sense like, the holidays that I need to give, I will give. Plan kare. But with your syllabus and everything, it's very competitive, right? And also at the school, you meet like 5 days a week, but in the class, it's just 2.5 hours for the entire week. So there's only so much that we can do during 1 week. So with that, I became very conscious. I want to cover the syllabus, but at the same time, I want y'all to have more practice in doing questions and to have more experience in doing questions. So it's not just the syllabus. O levels is not just the syllabus. So ඒකත් එක්ක තමයි I became like very calculative of the dates and all that. So ගොඩක් වෙලාවට ඒ කියන්නේ සමහරවිට මට classes ගොඩක් miss වෙනවා because I tend to get sick sometimes because of I have a wheezing problem ඒවත් එක්ක. ඉතින් ඒක හින්දා මම මාරෙද්දට පුළුවන් දවස්වල I try to do it somehow. ඒකයි මම ගන්න holiday එකක් දෙනකොට දෙතුන් පාරක් හිතන්නේ. Not because you guys don't deserve a holiday. I mean, it's Christmas and it's a year end. So then recently, now in Hope Education, there are a few directors. So it was a point that you guys, students, you deserve like a certain level of what do you call it, like freedom, like ඒ කියන්නේ අනවශ්‍ය විදියට stress කරන්න ඕනේ නෑ කියන එක හොඳ නෑ කියන එක. So that is very true. So that is something that I believe a lot because you guys don't deserve to be under like a lot of stress or like tension and anxiety. ගොඩක් දැන් ඔයගලන්ගේ generation එකේ අයට එක තියෙනවානේ. I mean, O levels is not something that should make you so stressed out, right? ඒක කරන විදියක් තියෙනවා, but because of the high expectations the schools, the teachers, and especially the parents have from you, I'm not saying all of you are like that, but there are some of you like that. ඒක හින්දා තමයි ඇත්තටම මේ මම නැත්තම් ඔය අලුත් grade 10 batch එකකට නිවාඩු දෙන්න නෙමෙයි හිටියේ. I mean 25th නම් තියෙන grade 11 class එකක්. ඒකට කොහොමද නිවාඩු දුන්නා because it's Christmas. But ඊට කලින් Tuesday Wednesday classes දෙක මම නිවාඩු දෙන්න නෙමෙයි හිටියේ. But then I actually thought about it and this is not how I want to do classes too. කියන්නේ අවුරුදු නිවාඩු කියන්නේ January නෙවෙයි. Sinhala Tamil New Year Nivaduwa, then Tamils they celebrate Thai Pongal and Deepavali and then Christmas. So ඒ holidays ටික හරි දෙන්න පුළුවන්. මොකද හැම පොයටම මට නිවාඩු දෙන්න බෑ. But ඒ ටික දෙන්න පුළුවන් නම් හොඳයි කියලා I kind of decided. But again depends on the dates and all that. මොකද දැන් අලුතෙන් නෙවෙයි. February වල O levels දෙන කට්ටියට I can't really afford to give them a holiday. With the current situation. නැත්නම් ඉස්සර නම් ඉතින් O levels තිබි December නේ. So එතකොට ඔක්කොම exam ලියලා මේ year end එක හරිම සතුටෙන් celebrate කරන්න පුළුවන්. Right? But now that it's in February, you have to go through this entire thing in December as well. Anyways, අන්න ඒ reason එකකින් හින්දා මම grade 11 අයට holiday එක දුන්නේ නැහැ. But I think it's okay to give you all the holiday. Because I'm very calculative, I calculated and January last bhaktin hinda, it's okay. Because I tend to overthink a lot ogana nivaadu denakota areme, but all good. The next week we'll take a holiday and we'll meet on 3rd. Yes, Pamodi, that's true. Okay. Yes, I rambled a bit, but let's come back to the exercise. Let's do this, Lamai. මේ exercise එක ඔයගොල්ලන්ගේ textbook එකේ page 18 වල තියෙන්නේ. We will do this exercise because we need to do some questions too. Okay? And හරි මේක පටන් ගන්නකො මුලින්. Start this. Quickly start this. If you have any questions, ask. Let me know in a done lamai.
Teacher, can you scroll the exercise, the paper?
Up or down? Like,
Down. Yeah.
okay.
Teacher, only we have 3 questions.
Yes, we have the MCQ and then we have these 2 questions. Yes. No. There's more. 4 and 5. That's 4 and 5 as well.
Teacher,
Yes, Ashwita.
teacher, I have a small doubt. In the
Yes.
third question,
Mm-hmm.
the figure A,
Yes.
is it parenchyma or sclerenchyma?
Parenchyma or sclerenchyma. Okay. So ඒව හොයාගන්න බැරි මුනිව B and C හොයාගෙන බලන්න. Right? And then so I will tell you this. මේ තුන එකක් parenchyma එකක් sclerenchyma අනිත් එක collenchyma. Parenchyma collenchyma sclerenchyma තමයි මේ තුන. එතකොට තුනේ මොකද්ද parenchyma මොකද්ද collenchyma මොකද්ද sclerenchyma නේ හොයන්න ඕනේ. So ගොඩක් A ට focus කරන්න නැතුව if you can't figure out A then move to B and C. Once you figure out B and C ඉතුරු වෙන කෙනානේ A. එතකොට ඒකට අදාළ නම ලියන්න. That's how you answer a question. And then later we'll discuss the correct answer. Okay?
Okay, teacher. Thank you.
All right.
Teacher done.
Okay, for others also, I will give you like 2 minutes, 3 minutes, quickly finish. Okay, Lama, we will discuss. Anybody who needs more time? Do you all need more time, Tamai? Done? Okay, 1 minute. Okay, I'll give you 1 more minute. Okay. Okay, we will discuss. Let's see. So first we have MCQs, right? Out of the cells and tissues given below, which type is of dead cells? There are fibers, there's parenchyma, collenchyma, and sieve tube element. Okay, I got one answer. I got another answer. Everybody put the answer in the chat box, huh? එතර හැමෝගේම answers අපිට බලන්න පුළුවන්. Okay. 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 All right. All right. Let's see. You know, when we consider plant cells, fibers කියලා අපි කියන්නේ sclerenchyma fibers වලට. Right? And we know in sclerenchyma tissue, both sclerates and sclerenchyma fibers are dead. Why are they dead? Why are they dead? Why are sclerenchyma fibers dead? Because lignin is deposited in the cell wall, lamaya. Sclerenchyma wala lignin තියෙන හින්දා cell wall එකේ they are dead because lignin completely seals like the cell wall. Okay. Yes, deposition of lignin. Parenchyma is anyways living cells, right? Parenchyma is anyways living cells. Collenchyma is also living cells. Sieve tube element nucleus like නැති වුණාට that is also a living cell. So fibers are dead. Of which of the following is a complex tissue? Yes. Others? Put the answer in the chat box. Of which of the following is a complex tissue? Okay.
Isha, the first question's answer is fibers, right?
Fibers, yes. Okay. So I got many answers. Many answers can should like venas answers with Tava. So we will discuss and see. So you know in plant tissues there are meristematic tissues and permanent tissues. That is the first level of classification. Then permanent tissues there are simple permanent tissues and complex permanent tissues. Simple permanent tissues carry parenchyma, sclerenchyma, and collenchyma. Parenchyma, collenchyma, sclerenchyma. Complex permanent tissues are xylem and phloem කියලා කියන්නේ. So the answer here should be xylem. Complex tissue එකක් නේ. Complex now it's xylem. Because parenchyma, collenchyma, and sclerenchyma are simple permanent tissues. Xylem and phloem are the complex permanent tissues. Okay. Features mentioned below could be observed in a plant tissue under a microscope. Identify the tissue. Isodimetric cells, large vacuoles, living tissues. Okay. What do you think? Yes. Sclerenchyma වල living cells වෙන්න බෑනේ. Living cells කියපු ගමන් sclerenchyma අයින් කරන්න පුළුවන් අපිට. And xylem කිව්වම අපිට හරියට කියන්න බෑ because xylem has 4 different types of cells. ඒතර මේවා අපිට හරියට කියන්න බෑ xylem වල. Xylem has 4 different types of cells. ඒකින්ද අපිට ඒක xylem වලට කියන්න බෑ. Isodimetric කියන්නේ spherical cells. But you know collenchyma වල තියෙන spherical cells නෙවෙයි. So it's also not collenchyma. It is parenchyma. ඒක අපි වෙන අනිත්‍යව බලන්න නැති වුණත් අපිට කෙලින්ම කියන්න පුළුවන් it's parenchyma කියලා. Isodimetric means spherical lamaya. Spherical, there's a large vacuole, living cells. ඒ ඔක්කොටම හරියන්නේ parenchyma. Living cells විතරක් ගත්තොත් නම් collenchyma, parenchyma, they are both living. Okay? But collenchyma are not isodimetric. A characteristic of a skeletal muscle fiber is spindle-shaped, cross striations, uninucleate, never become fatigue. Okay, I have some answers in the chat box. Okay. Now, spindle-shaped Kuhama, skeletal muscle fiber, never spindle-shaped. Which fiber is spindle-shaped?
Smooth muscle.
Smooth muscle fiber is the spindle-shaped one. So it's definitely not skeletal. Cross striations now, skeletal walat tiyana, cardiac walat tiyana. Uninucleate. We know skeletal tissue is not uninucleate, it's multinucleate. Uninucleate when is smooth muscle tissue and cardiac muscle tissue. Never becomes fatigue kawda.
Cardiac muscle.
Cardiac
tissue.
Yes. In cross striations tamai answer. When a student observes an animal tissue under the microscope, he observes the cells present on a basement membrane. That's easy. Which one is this? That's easy. It's epithelial tissue, no? Basement membrane කියපු ගමන් yes ළමයි. There can't be anything else other than epithelial tissues. අපි කතා කරපු හැම එකකම basement membrane එකක් තිබේ epithelial tissue වල විතරයි. And on the basement membrane there were cells. සමහරවිට එක cell එකක් තියෙනවා, or there are like different cell layers, then different shapes of cells, right? Which is correct about cardiac muscle fibers? Others? I'm checking all your answers. මට ඔයගොල්ලෝ හැමෝගෙම answers මෙතන එනවා. මම ඔක්කොම chat කරලා බලනවා. Okay? So please send me your answers. Others? Okay. Which is correct about cardiac muscle fibers? Non-striated. Eka venna bad because you know cardiac muscle tissue is striated. There are striations. What other muscle tissue has striations? Cardiac, ne? Cardiac also has striations. Skeletal and skeletal and cardiac දෙන්නගෙම striations තියෙනවා. So non-striated කියන එක වැරදි. Multinucleate. Which muscle tissue is multinucleate?
Skeletal muscle tissue.
Yes. Skeletal muscle tissue is multinucleate. Both smooth and cardiac, they are uninucleate. Long cylindrical cells තියෙන කාටද?
Skeletal muscle tissue.
Skeletal. Then cardiac වල විතරක් තියෙන එකක් තමයි intercalated discs. Striations නම් දෙන්නටම තියෙනවා skeletal and cardiac, but intercalated discs only cardiac tissue has. Okay. State two differences between meristematic and permanent tissues. Kenmana, what did you write? State two differences between meristematic and permanent tissues.
Tissue for meristematic cells that continuously divide. For permanent, they have already divided and subdivided.
Okay, yes, that's one. Others?
Distinct.
Yes.
Distinct nucleus, for permanent specific functions only they do.
Okay. What else? Okay, same. Others? What else did you write? Anything other than those answers? Okay, yes. So one of the things is, yes, correct, Ashwita. Meristematic tissues have cells that actively divide by mitosis. Permanent tissues don't have cells that divide, right? That is one of the main differences. That is one of the differences. Meristematic tissues have cells that divide actively by mitosis. Permanent tissues don't have cells that divide. Kaliyagan balan. Then if you take the meristematic tissue, you remember there was a distinct nucleus. But in permanent tissues, the cells mostly have like ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ හරිම මැද ලොකුවට nucleus එක නැහැ. If you remember, the nucleus was kind of in the periphery. Okay, so you can write that as well. So meristematic tissues have a distinct nucleus. In permanent tissues, the nucleus is in the periphery. That is another one. Also, you can write, excuse me. Also, you can write in meristematic tissues, the cells don't have a large vacuole. In permanent tissues, the cells have a large vacuole. Meristematic වල cell එකකට large vacuole නැහැ. In permanent, large vacuole තියෙනවා. Anything else?
Permanent tissues are doing like they're specialized to do a task, but meristematic tissues are
Not specialized. Yes, very good. That is also correct. Meristematic tissues are not differentiated. Differentiate වෙනවා කියන එකම තමයි specialized වෙනවා කියන්නේ. You can either write differentiated or specialized. So meristematic tissues are, the cells are not differentiated. ඒගොල්ලෝ ඔක්කොම එක වගේ. Right? But permanent වල they are differentiated. So they have specialized functions to perform. Anything else? So do you remember meristematic tissues have cells without chloroplasts? Permanent tissues generally, their cells have chloroplasts because we're talking about a plant. So So these are the differences between meristematic and permanent. Now we have to identify these tissues. A දැක්ක ගමන් confuse වෙනවා නම් B and C ට යනවා. Right? B ලේසියටම කියන්න පුළුවන් because you can see there are like hexagonal shape වගේ polygonal shape එකක් තියෙන්නේ. and උගලට පේනවද corner එක තමයි thick වෙලා තියෙන්නේ කියලා. මේ cell එකේ corners ටික තමයි thick වෙලා තියෙන්නේ. Corners thick වෙලා කියලා දැක්ක ගමන්ම that is a special feature of collenchyma. So from that it's easy to identify collenchyma. So B is collenchyma because of that. C ගත්තොත් එහෙම these are like නිකන් spheres වගේනේ රවුමට වගේ තියෙන්නේ. ඒක දැක්ක ගමන් ඔයාලට තේරෙන්න ඕනේ that is parenchyma කියලා. රවුමට වගේ cells තියෙනවා that is parenchyma. So the first one is sclerenchyma. Actually ළමයින් sclerenchyma මේ තියෙන fibers. They are very hollow, right? And මෙන්න මේ තනින් තන තියෙන these are scleraids. So scleraids and fiber ඒකයි මේ ಜಾති දෙකක් වගේ පේන්නේ, right? That is because of that. So A is actually sclerenchyma. A කියන එක එකපාරට identify කරගන්න බැරි වෙයි කියලා කියන්නේ බැරි හින්දා තමයි මම කිව්වේ මුලින්ම B and C sort out කරන්න. Once you have B and C sorted out, you know A is the remaining one, which is sclerenchyma. So yes, your answers all seem to be correct. But A is not parenchyma, A is sclerenchyma. Parenchyma මෙන්න මේ වගේ තමයි කොහොමද තියෙන්නේ පොඩි round ගතියක්. I mean this is not perfectly circular, but පොඩි round ගතියක් තියෙනවා කියන්නේ that is parenchyma. Okay? All right. Let's move on to the next question. State two structural differences between cardiac muscle fiber and skeletal muscle fiber. Put in the chat box, Namai. State two structural differences between cardiac muscle fiber and skeletal muscle fiber. Chat box එකේ දාන්න answers. I got one answer. Yes.
Tissue, shall I say?
Yes. Yes, Sashita.
Cardiac uninucleated, skeletal multinucleated, cardiac branched, skeletal unbranched.
Yes. Yes. So cardiac has multinucleated cells. Structural differences ne. So structure differences cardiac has multinucleated cells and cardiac has uninucleated cells and skeletal has multinucleated cells. So ekali anupuna ka. Then cardiac is branched and skeletal is unbranched. Ekali anupuna. Then in cardiac the cells are short, but in skeletal they have long cells. So ekatli anupuna. So those three are the structural differences. Also you can write in cardiac there is an intercalated disc present, but in skeletal there are no intercalated discs. Ekatli anupuna. Name the animal tissues given below in diagrams. What do you think A is? These are animal tissues. Animal tissues අපි පොඩ්ඩයි ඉගෙන ගත්තේ. We learned about epithelial tissues, connective tissues වල blood විතරයි. Then muscle tissue and nervous tissue. So ඔය ටිකට වැටෙන ටිකක් නේ වෙන්න ඕනේ. So don't overthink too much. ඔයා දන්න ටිකෙන් answer කරන්න. What is A? Yes, A is epithelial. A is epithelial because there seems to be this basement membrane. Let me show you. There seems to be this basement membrane and ඒක උඩ වගේ නෙමෙයි cells තියෙන්නේ. Excuse me. So this is epithelial. What is B? Yes.
Nervous tissue.
Yes, nervous tissue. Then C? Yes.
Cardiac muscle tissue.
Yes, cardiac muscle tissue. Good. So in A we have epithelial tissue, in B we have nervous tissue, in C we have cardiac muscle tissue. So that is all for this part. මම මේ answers ලිවෙන මේ ටික විතරක් underline කරා. Do you all have any questions or is everything clear? If everything is clear, can you give me a thumbs up, please?
Clear tissue.
Okay. If you have questions, you can ask in the chat box. Or like you can unmute and ask. Okay. Did you all watch the World of Life recording? World of Life recording එකේ තියෙනවා මට මතක විදියට invertebrates ලා ටික තිබ්බද කොහෙද? Note එක නා ඔක්කොම තියෙනවා. The note is the completed note. Recording එක බලපු කෙනෙක් ඉන්නවද එක්කෙනෙක් හරි? No? I won't ask questions. Just tell me, did you watch the recording?
Like,
Okay. Okay, I will share the rest of the recording this week. හැබැයි okay, invertebrates ටිකත් කිව්වා වගේ තමයි මට මතක. Even the invertebrates I have explained. The only thing that is remaining is vertebrate groups ටික. Okay. It's okay, but මේ week එක ඇතුළත බලන්න ළමයි, ආ. මේ week එක ඇතුළත අනිවාර්යෙන් බලන්න. And other than the world of life, all the grade 10 lessons are completed, no? Reproduction අපි කරන්නේ seminar එකත් එක්ක. The rest of the lessons? Okay, all right. හරි. එතකොට now that we are done with the living tissues lesson, මම ඔයගලන්ට worksheet එකක් දෙන්නේ නැති වෙයි ගොඩක් දුරට. I think I will Because in grade 11, the plan is to, rather than doing worksheets, we will quickly finish everything so that by July, August, we can start the past papers. Right? Past papers ගොඩක් තියෙනවා කරන්න. ඒකින්ද අපිට August වගේ වෙද්දිවත් past papers ටික පටන් ගන්න පුළුවන් විදිහට අපි ඉක්මනට කරගෙන යමු. Okay? But once in a while, I will send you worksheets. Second lessons keep a combined color. We can do a few worksheets, right? We'll see how it goes. And I had something else to never the fly okay. So then in the group Lamai, today I sent you the photosynthesis note, right? Open the 1 second. I think it will work. Document open when anyways, in the photosynthesis note, 1 second. Yeah, it's working. So photosynthesis note take a printout. You don't have to take a colored printout. If you want to get one, it's okay. But otherwise, it's not really necessary. And we will try to finish the photosynthesis the next day we meet. But 3rd of January, that will be your exam. Next week will be holiday and 3rd of January will be your exam. My paper ka hadala tiyene market world of life questions them me net the query. So I will try to re-edit that like a few questions. Anyways, camera issues තියෙනවා නම් මට පොඩක් call කරලා කියන්න, right? Message එකක් දාලා තිබ්බා a few I saw, but I couldn't reply. I will get back, right? So හැමෝටම camera issues and බෑ ළමයි, yeah? So others, if it's unavoidable, I understand totally. But you have to switch on your camera and the paper will be 1.5 hours to 2 hours, right? And then the rest of the time we will spend for discussions, okay? And once that is over, we can do photosynthesis. A photosynthesis note take print out because we might start it very soon. And also, මම තව note එකක් එවනවා. ඒක දැම්ම නෙවෙයි ඕනේ. මට ඉස්සරහට එවන්න අමතක වෙයි කියලා මම ඒක එවලා තියන්නම්. Your 3rd lesson is a lesson called mixtures. So there's a part 1 and part 2. Part 1 ekara note ekak naha. We are just going to discuss it because there are like calculations and all that. But part 2 there's a note. I will send that note as well. Because I know if I don't send it now, I most probably forget it, right? ඒකින්ද මම එවලා තියාගන්නම්. ඒතකොට දෙකම එකට අරන් තියාගන්න because we are going to be needing them very soon. I think that is all I have to say. We can end the class for today. Do you all have any questions before we finish the class? Or is everything that we did today clear to all of you? Then සමහරකින් අද answers ආවෙම නැහැ. You have to like be actively engaged in the class and respond. Give answers and all that. Okay. Then that's all. Early Christmas wishes, Lamai. And I know some of you all celebrate Christmas religiously as well. And anyways, it's the festive season. So have fun the coming week and have a good vacation, a good rest. And we'll meet on 3rd. And it's going to be a new month. It's the year 2026. Okay. So it's going to be an exciting year for all of us. So let's meet on that day, January 3rd. Okay, Lamai. Then good night. Yes, thank you. Good night.